Before we kick off, I wanted to let you know how easy it is to get support from NZTE if you want to take your business to the world. We have tons of helpful resources at your fingertips, including guides for all our major trading markets, how-to articles, and advice from other Kiwi tech exporters like you that are succeeding globally. Head to getthere.nz/tech to find out more. Welcome, Anka. It's so great to have you with us. I know you work with a whole bunch of American, New Zealand, and other international companies who are trying to get a foothold and grow in the US market. So really looking forward to your insights today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Cool. Well, I'm going to kick off with the big question first up. So McKinsey recently published an article entitled How B2B Winners Grow. And that stated that the consumerization of B2B buying appears nearly complete. Can you talk about what that means from your perspective?
I'm not sure how many of our viewers have ever seen the MarTech landscape. And, I started watching that many years ago, so maybe around 2016, and there were a handful of, hundreds of companies. I looked again today just to see, and 2022 was almost at 10,000 companies that were offering sales, marketing, kind of the entire ecosystem of things. And then within that, we now have all of the companies offering a version that is in AI enabled. And the landscape is complete. The offerings are complete. There are unique ways of doing that, but things have really, really changed. And the customer is expecting the companies to really provide them with kind of a hands-off experience to get all the way through. If you think of the customer journey and the life cycle funnel and all the things we sort of think about when we're doing marketing, they want to be able to control the process. And so, you've got the entire ecosystem very well built out. There's obviously always opportunities within that. Then you have the process within the buying cycle being very much automated and on your own, on demand, at your own time, all the way through. That's how I think about it, is that the sophistication of the process is there, right? Some companies obviously much better than others at this, but really all the different ways that you want to be buying. And, I think about that for myself as well. I can find that journey. I can find that somewhere within, within the options that are out there.
That's so true, right? That it's an overused term, but that frictionless buying experience you as a consumer have, you want that same in your B2B buying kind of experience, I suppose. So given that shift, given that, people want to buy in their own terms, and self-serve content and really self-provision often, what are your top tips for making sure that any marketing activity is going to achieve results?
The results and the things that people are doing have really changed. And I know we had an opportunity to talk about that a little bit. COVID, there were some like massive seismic shifts in, how individuals were responding to inbound sales requests, the staying at home. Now many are going back, but there's this sense of, I'm picking things on my terms. I want to experience it on my terms. I'm being much more selective about the things I'm saying yes to. I'm being much more selective about the things I'm open to. So there's just so much new stuff coming at us, and we have to be ready for that. So when I think about how do you measure success, how do you get, how do you have success? One is just really being aware of that the way that we did business is no longer acceptable, right? It's no longer just bring in a couple of SDRs and hope that you can cut the buying journey short by going all the way down to interest by just calling them enough or emailing them enough or whatever. You have to be willing and aware that you need to utilize all the marketing resources that are available to you. Things that are hot right now, we've talked about, our events are getting hot, and not little events, right? So not every event. People are very selective in what they're going to spend time on and money on right now. But the larger conferences are back. The bigger opportunities, the more well-defined opportunities to meet are back. I don't think the one-to-one is back yet. I don't think companies and individuals, they're not willing to give up that time that they realized they had with family and with other things. Right now, that sort of cuts in if you set up a lot of meetings with something you're just not quite sure yet. So again, there comes that frictionless buying journey. You have to look at all the different pieces, and I think you have to be fairly sophisticated and ready with all of them. It's not, it's just not enough to do one thing well, as you have to do a number of things well, right? You need to look correctly online. You need to be an influencer. You need to be, you need to make it easy for someone to learn about you on their terms. You need to be able to take them all the way through. And you need to be at the places that they're willing to go to, whatever those are, right? So learning about where they're willing to spend time and money right now. And, those are probably the more premier events, the more established ones, or the ones where they draw kind of the top tier folks in more of an intimate setting. Those are also very popular. It's a really tough environment for a lot of vendors that are just trying to sell. But if you become a problem solver, if you're a part of everything, if you're really in the mix, then I think that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
But thinking about the viewers tuning in today, a lot might be earlier stage, kind of contemplating the US, not necessarily going to put people at events, just given the Kiwi dollar right now. So what's your advice to that group that are thinking, 18 months time, 2 years, maybe I'll put somebody on the ground. But what's your kind of 101 in terms of getting cut through? What do they have to be thinking about?
Yeah, there are a couple of things. One is, I think it's fantastic to start early, right? So the fact that maybe some companies aren't quite ready, this is that perfect opportunity to, one, figure out if there are a couple of key accounts that you might be able to get. And many New Zealand companies do have, some premier accounts that have already been opened, or even companies that they work with where they're sort of test accounts. And find your path, start building those relationships, start building that frictionless buying journey, start getting your content out there. Just be really aware that the content is going to be a little bit different, but start looking at whatever market, whether it's the US market, which is what we're mostly talking about, but others, is figure out what will it take to be kind of local without having to, you don't have to have boots on the ground. You don't have to be there yet to really do that. I think that those are some early things. And then also look at the competitive landscape. The competitive landscape probably is going to be a lot more sophisticated and broader than what you're used to, right? You're thinking about New Zealand is probably the size of one state and maybe a smaller state, right? And then you've got the behemoths like California, where, they're the 5th largest economy of any country in the world, and that's one state, right? And they all are different. They have different personalities. And it's like looking at, you can't do it all. You can't be generic, niching it down, getting to know those folks that might be coming even your way, or coming, maybe you can meet in Asia at a conference, right? So there's ways of starting to develop those relationships. Don't think you're going to get the whole market, that, you can really be that broad. You really have to look at who really needs it. How do you stand out? Making sure that you stand out, that you're not just an also ran, that you're just sort of similar to others. You've got to be really, really refreshingly different and offer some really clear solutions to a smaller group initially that you can then expand to. And that might, the different ways to niche, right? It can be location niche, it can be industry niche, it can be just personality niche, right? Utilize whatever those strengths are that you have as a company now, but put that on steroids, make that bigger so that it's noticeable in this really busy, sort of saturated market. We need you to stand out. We need you to make us aware of how really great your solution is and how it's different. And being like, I don't think like MVP is enough here. There's enough MVPs, right? You have to probably be fully developed. You don't have to be big, but you have to really solve something really well in a niche, then take it and grow from there versus just, sort of solving something well, or just this little bitty part well. Sort of think about that ecosystem you're going into and solve that well. Get to know the folks in New Zealand that are in that, get to know the folks that are in the EU and in the US, and start communicating just with that group, solving some problems, bringing some content together. You can host webinars from New Zealand. They don't know you're not here in many, many ways, right? You can really look and feel like a US player. Frankly, lots and lots of companies do. I think about most of my clients and I haven't met them all, right? They wouldn't know if I was based somewhere else. I can still solve some really, really important needs for them by just being aware and being, talking their language and understanding their problems and going really deep into those niches.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I hear a lot of companies that, I've interviewed a number who've said, punching in a niche so that you actually appear bigger than you are is really important, right? And the other thing about niche, and look, this is me going on a little tangent, but I think niche has a certain connotation in New Zealand, which is, but small, perhaps not a very large market overall, but niche in the States has a really different connotation. Niche could be churches, for example, and there are, I think, 300,000 of those, right?
That's right.
Whereas there'd be 3,000 churches perhaps in New Zealand. So I think that's really good advice, finding the niche, and don't think niche actually means small. It just means super focused, right?
Yes, and it means that you can figure out who are the players. It means that you can find out where, what is the media they pay attention to, what are the conferences they would attend to, who do you need to know? Maybe there's some consultants you might have the opportunity to meet that can be door openers. It really just means a way to get in, and like you said, it's a focus, and it's never small in this mass country.
Yeah, that's so true. And a little plug for my NZT content. We've got some really great buyer persona guides online. You can just download and help building out your the profile of your ideal buyer. And as Anka said, what's the industry look like? Where do they go and consume their media content? Anyway, I won't do another content plug. On to my next question. So
hang on, just one more thing along that. So
sure.
If you think about the niche, make sure that all of the things that they're going to see about you are ready. So we've had this with a number of companies in the past where they're ready to go, they want to go in the niche, but they forgot that their website needs to look like that. Their content needs to sound like that niche is familiar. They needed to alter a number of their sales materials and have everything ready that they didn't. And it just is much, much harder than to be doing it afterwards. So with that time that you still have before you come here, think about 1-2 niches and just do a great job in building out your offerings, your productize it, like make it really clear that when they come there and you guide them into that path of where they should be, that it's familiar and it makes sense and it's really speaking to them really well.
Yeah, that's so true. It's part of that journey, right? That you identify your persona and build everything around that persona, and don't also get rid of the Kiwiisms, change your language, some of those basic things that we can forget. Use a lot of video content as well, obviously super popular. Everyone, I'm sure, is aware of that. An example of a B2B company that you've seen break through recently, and why do you think they've managed to break through?
I've been looking at different industries, and one of the companies that I thought was very interesting that broke through recently is Warmly. I'm seeing more and more sales folks talk about how it's really helped them with warmer introductions, warmer follow-ups, especially after a meeting. It kind of has this really nice approach, and also in the invite has a really nice approach. And it's sort of the reason I think it stands out, it's not just your traditional sales approach where it obviously solves all of those things well and elegantly, but it adds that one nice layer of super friendly, super interesting, it just adds this human element to the interaction, all the different pieces, right? Whether it's the invite, the kind of early demo, the follow-up, the meeting notes, the agenda setting, whatever all those pieces were, Warmly is breaking through because it's different, and it added another level on top of the efficiency part, which they had to solve.
Obviously, tracked you down as a potential buyer. What is it that they did that the audience could think about doing themselves?
Yeah. So it's interesting in that it was shared from someone else and how thoughtful they thought the follow-up was. And so I went ahead and searched it. They hadn't reached out to me yet, but I'm assuming that will be on their list soon. I think for every company, I think that you should do a kind of an evaluation of what are the have to do's, like what are the things that we have to solve because of this, whatever space we're in, what are the things we have to do very well, very elegantly. And then the next level is, all right, that's the benchmark. That's just the baseline of where you need to be. Then is, what can we do to add personality, to add something that's another level of helpful, or it just is a interesting look and feel so that they can customize it on their end that just stands out, right? So things that make people really just fall in love are really interesting design, really smooth processes, something that's entertaining and quirky and fun and interesting, and allowing them, as me, like as a consumer, how do I stand out more? Like if you can make me stand out to look better and more like the type of company I want to portray myself as, which is human and, conscientious and supportive and helpful, and do it with a little flair and personality, and allow my look and feel, not just your look. Like it doesn't matter, I want to be powered by something behind the scenes. I don't want it to look and feel like someone else. I want it to look and feel like me. So how do you do that, right? How do you give your companies this? How do you empower them? How do you make them even better in every part? And it's the little things, right? Like I mentioned with Warmly, it's not the big process of sales. It's the beautiful little invite with the follow-up and everyone's LinkedIn that was attending, and it's when it's on the calendar, it looks totally different because the calendar was so nicely designed that it made me look, it makes me look better. It makes everyone else look, and it doesn't look like something from some other company. It just makes me better.
Definitely want to buy on their own terms, and they may not even want to see or talk to anybody. What is it that leaders should be thinking about as they build out their marketing approach?
Yeah, and it's so hard for us to want to give up that sign up for a demo now, right? Because we know that when we can speak to someone, we have this ability to share our story, and we can, really do a great job. We have to figure out how to do that without being with them, right? So that's using video, that's using interactive things, that's using content without it being heavy, that's using design well. It's really having to do things well that we may not have been really great at, right? And bringing them through. And it might not all happen at the same time. That's the other thing to think about, right? The journey isn't I'm going to just immerse myself and I'm going to let you do hours of this training that, or this conversation that you would have normally had with me in person. That is not going to happen, right? Thinking about what are the first pieces? How do you engage? How do you entertain? How do you, help people fall in love with your brand? So not just this problem solution, but the benefit, how do you become part of something, right? The emotional appeal. It's going to take some work, and marketing has, some big requirements to fill. And so does sales. What does sales look like when you don't get someone on the phone, or you don't get that meeting set until much farther down the journey, right? And then learning, where do they fall out, really monitoring, making sure that the tracking is in place, really making sure that you've got your brand message and your tone all the way through in all different formats, because someone may want to watch a mini video. Don't do long videos. No one watches long. No one reads long content. Make it skimmable and then more in depth that they can go. Make sure you do everything in bite-sized pieces and allow the customer to tell you when they want more, right? Just have them select and keep going and be in all sorts of different places so that it isn't just one place that they're going to find you. Really look at how do you reach them, you know, whether it's retargeting, whether it's digital ads, whether it's social channels, whether it's event channels, whether it's webinars and videos and audio podcasts. Like, what does it look like so that you can really bring them through, and use influencers, because you won't have the street credibility right away, probably for a long time. So partner up with someone that does, right? Start with those niches where it's someone that has a nice audience. Start with that audience. Don't start with the broad audience. Super hard to market that way. But if you have a few folks that you bring on that can be your webinar guest, and they have 5,000, 7,000 LinkedIn followers, make webinars just for them to start, and then bring in another guest. That there you have a universe, right? Figure out how to use those that already have credibility, and you know, let that credibility rub off on you, because you're going to need it. It's not easy to build. It takes time and money and just doing things well for a while, you know, so that companies trust you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think, you know, you mentioned it as well, that what underpins all that is clarity of messaging and really crisp customer value proposition. I often hear it called value proposition. We often forget the customer value proposition. So being super sharp on that is so essential to grab
Just
people's attention.
Understand them, be part of their world, and then you can speak to, you know, hopefully you'll have folks that are on the team that have experienced the same challenge, so that they can really speak to it and feel the pain, right?
Thanks, Anka. Thanks for sharing all your insights. Much appreciated. And for everyone watching, I hope you enjoyed today's event. And remember, if you need to tap into resources around how to successfully grow globally, please go to getthere.nz/tech, and you'll find a whole bunch of resources. Thanks for tuning in.